So do the best you can with it. And one of the things you can do the best you can with it is to help make aging more rewarding. Welcome to the show. And that's because my show is dedicated to the aging body. I'm one of you out there. I'm a baby boomer. Proud to say that. And so my show is dedicated to our needs, our wants, our desires as we get older. And we want to be rewarded with aging, not penalized because of it. And there's a couple different things that you need to do to make sure you're rewarded. Watch what you eat. I mean, eat's the right way. We can go over all that. And move. Doesn't mean leave town. It means move around. Exercise. And unfortunately, many seniors, we don't do that. We don't do neither of those. We don't eat properly. And we don't do enough activity. And that's tied into all kinds of conditions, from heart disease to diabetes, increased risk of cancer, high blood pressure, which we'll talk a little bit about today, dementia, falling down, hurting ourselves. That's not rewarding. At least I don't find it to be rewarding. And it's not rewarding when you have to take more medications to treat the conditions that we've created by our lifestyles. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to avoid taking all your medications. I'm not going to say that. But I'm saying the need goes down when you do those things. When you eat properly and when you exercise. It's more rewarding. You get the rewards of being fit and healthy. You get to spend more time enjoying company with friends and people that you love. You get more time to spend with your grandkids. You get more time to spend with your significant other, your wife or your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your husband. It's more rewarding. It's not rewarding when you're spending time managing sickness, is it? Is it now? So let's start with exercise. What are the benefits of exercise on aging? How exercise helps you age well? Call up the research, search for the fountain of youth. Experts say the best way to slow physiological change is through consistent exercise. In one study, researchers found that older adults who were vigorously cyclists had immune systems resembling those of young individuals. Let's stop at that point. What do you see on TV right now? Lots of commercials for flu shots. Who do they show? Older people. People my age group. You don't want to get the flu, might lead to pneumonia. Well, they're right. You can. But you can increase the immune system so you don't get flu. It decreases your risk, and the diet has a lot to do with that too. I'll go on. Brains may also benefit from regular exercise at an intense or moderate level. Research shows it may slow brain aging by up to 10 years. Yeah, up to 10 years. Your treadmill may not be a time machine, but research shows that regular exercise can help slow the body's aging process. Exercise is the closest thing we found to a magic pill for combating the effects of aging. That's Dr. Linda Fried, Dean of Columbia University Mailman School of Public Health. That's in an interview with Columbia Magazine. That's because it works on every physiological system and keeps your entire body fine-tuned. It even stimulates your brain and helps to prevent cognitive decline. We're going to get into an article on neuroscience about that too. The benefits of exercise in preventing or managing chronic conditions that can influence longevity are well documented. But researchers have found that it goes much further than that. Here are some of what they have discovered about aging and exercise so far. Exercise bolsters immunity. In a study of aged adults, 55 to 79, with long-standing exercise routines, researchers at the UK's King College London and University of Birmingham found that they had immune systems of much younger adults. All the participants were recreational exercisers. cyclist. It says an organ called the thymus, which makes immune cells called T cells, starts to shrink from the age of 20 and makes less T cells. In this study, however, cyclist thymuses were making as many T cells as those of younger people. The report shows. Studies show that aging can diminish the body's immune response, making older adults more vulnerable to respiratory infections and other diseases. And what do you see commercials for? Drugs that help you breathe better. Drugs that help you breathe better. So exercise is a very powerful tool for making aging more rewarding. But most of us seniors, we sit too much. We don't move around. So what they do to us when we do that, they start to put us on more medications. Treat this condition. Treat that condition. No, you've got memory problems. Take this drug. Oh, you got high blood pressure. Take this drug. Oh, take 3 or 4 of these drugs for blood pressure. We want to get it real low. And we'll talk about that in a moment, too. How real low is not really good. Take this statin drug. Oh, statins are good for you because it lowers cholesterol. We do know that cholesterol increases your risk of what? High cholesterol. That's what it does. And it's nutrition that helps to fix these problems. But take that statin drug, though, because you got high cholesterol, and you know what statins do, don't you? By the way, they affect cognitive ability. Yeah. That's one of the side effects. Cognition. Oh, I'll just ignore that because you have to weigh the benefits against the risk factors. It also increases your risk of developing diabetes by 50%. That's what statin drugs do. And if you're a diabetic already, it increases the risk of developing, making it even worse, taking more drugs. Just take another pill for the problem. After all, they've got Jardiance, the small pill with the big story, don't they? See that on TV all the time. So exercise. The king. The king. The king. Or should I say the queen? Yeah, the queen. We'll make exercise the queen because the king is eat, food, nutrition. That's the king. Then you take the queen and you've got a kingdom. Number here is 602-260-5394. So you're out there, you're my age group, you may be a little bit older, maybe a little bit younger, okay, maybe 50 and above, and you really don't know you've got all kinds of things going. What do I do, Dr. Fitness? I have no idea. I've had my joints replaced, I'm overweight, I feel sluggish, I haven't exercised in years. I'm afraid to go into a gym because the people that go there, they're not me, they're not my age group, doesn't fit me. I feel intimidated. Yeah, that's the normal person. All right, we're going to get back to this article I was reading about exercise and how important it is and how it helps us age well. And continues by going on, exercise slows the biological clock. I mean, you could take 2 people, put them next to each other, same age, and the person who's active and takes care of themselves looks 10, 15, sometimes 20 years younger. Not only because of how their physical presentation, but their skin as well. It says here, after examining data from more than 5,800 adults ages 20 to 84 at Brigham Young University's exercise science professors discovered that adults who ran a minimum of 30 to 40 minutes 5 days a week had an almost 9-year biological aging advantage. That advantage is tied to something called telomeres. Now, just remember the telomere. Think of a candle. This is a telomere. You light the candle. The longer the candle stays lit, the smaller the candle gets until you get to the end of the wick. Then the candle goes out. Telomeres are like that. There are nucleotide end caps of our chromosomes, explains BYU professor Larry Tucker. They're like our biological clock, and they're extremely correlated with age. Each time a cell replicates, because our cells keep repeating themselves, we lose a tiny bit of the end caps. Therefore, the older we get, the shorter our telomeres. The high-octane exercises had significantly longer telomeres than sedentary adults, conferring that almost 9-year biological advantage. They had a 7-year advantage over adults who were moderately active. We know that regular exercise activity helps to reduce mortality and prolong life. And now we know part of the advantage may be due to the preservation of telomeres, says Tucker, whose research was published in Preventive Medicine in the release. Sounds good to me. That's why people like Jack LaLanne lived to be 96. And the day before, he was in the gym, working out. 96 is a pretty old guy to be in the gym working out. We see all kinds of examples of people who take care of themselves and exercise. The other one that helps to keep the brain young. Better mood, better energy, better memory, better attention. That's what neuroscientist and author Sandy Saluki experienced after becoming a regular at the gym. The brain-changing benefits of exercise, Suzuki calls exercise the most transformative thing you can do for the brain today. But what about aging? Can exercise delay aging in the brain? Research suggests not only that it can, but that moderate to intense exercise may slow aging by 10 years. Make aging more rewarding. Make it more rewarding. The king. Diet. The queen. Exercise. We'll get to diet here shortly. Now that king, that queen helps to support the king. Because if you're not active and you're not keeping those muscles strong, you can't move around. So you can have a nice king in a kingdom, but if the king is not taken care of, then the kingdom weakens faster. Number here is 602-260-5394. Here's another one for you. Most people aren't told this. Did you realize that low blood pressure can increase your risk or may be a culprit in dementia? It says calf muscles and blood pressure can predict dementia risk. Decline in brain function often occurs as people age. People often worry that declining brain function is an inevitable part of growing old and will lead to dementia, but it is not. Many people do not experience age-related cognitive decline. Clinical studies that have followed older people over many years have consistently demonstrated that chronically low blood pressure increases the risk of age-related cognitive decline. For example, a study published in 2017 followed more than 24,000 people for up to 27 years. The study showed that low blood pressure is a significant predictor of the cognitive decline and the probability of developing dementia. This is independent of age, gender, weight, cardiovascular, kidney, or diabetic status. Low blood pressure is associated with decreased blood flow to the brain when an individual is sitting or standing. Many researchers have come to believe that insufficient blood flow plays a critical role in the development of dementia, Alzheimer's, and perhaps even Parkinson's. Some believe that it may even play a primary role. So you've got, it's like this. The heart pumps blood. The blood goes where? The blood goes to every organ in the body, including the brain. What does that blood provide? It provides oxygen. It provides nutrients. It provides food for the organs and the brain to function on. The brain has two sources of energy, ketones and sugar, glucose. When one's not available, the body will use the other unless overloaded with what? Glucose, the cheap source. But if blood pressure is low, you're getting very low nutrient levels to the brain and very low oxygen. So what happens then? It affects balance. It makes us tired. And when you have lack of blood flow to the brain and lack of nutrients of the right kind, then what happens? The brain ages faster. But let's take 3 or 4 blood pressure drugs. Let's get that blood pressure way down there, baby. Let's get it down to 90/40. I'm just jazzing now. The lower the better. I'm just jazzing now, so don't take this serious. But that cutoff marker of 120 over 80 is the cutoff marker for a reason. You don't really want it lower than that. In fact, a lot of specialists or experts are saying the number should be 140 over 90. That's when we should become concerned to bring it down. And it doesn't mean taking 4 or 5 different medications to do it. It doesn't. Because the more medications you take, the lower the blood pressure goes, the more effect it has on the brain and the body. You don't want blood pressure that low. We got to get it under 100. We got to get this diastolic pressure under 60. No. Too low. This is what these studies are saying. Now, here's something else you can do. Eat better. Eat like Lance. Eat lower carbohydrate. What do some of them call carnivore diet? Well, I don't go that extreme, but I go low carb. And, we're talking about these different articles on exercise and blood pressure and stuff like this. And the article I'm reciting from Neuroscience goes on to say a number of different things. It says those of us who study the link between low blood pressure and cognitive performance need to determine what too low a blood pressure means in an individual. This will allow healthcare providers to know when to intervene and correct a person's low blood pressure. This is from Brigham Young University. It says, in our research, we are utilizing data obtained from relatively new quantitative assessment tool cleared by the FDA for evaluating cognitive function in people over the age of 50. And it goes on to study them. And it says one of the things they can actually do, they're talking about the cutoff being 120 over 80. It should be closer to 140 over 90 is what the number should be. And they're getting these people, their blood pressure is running their diastolic in the 50s. And one of the things they can actually help to do to help the blood pressure is to work the calf muscles, a soleus muscle, which is a deep, medium, lower leg muscle underneath the calf itself, which helps. It's instrumental in pushing blood back to the heart. And that muscle actually helps in the regulation of blood pressure. It also helps in regulation of glucose. Surprisingly enough, people don't realize that. Okay, that muscle does a lot of different things. This is why you have the power of exercise. Then you get into the power of food. Okay, in food again, food is the king. Food is the king. And the American diet today is so overloaded with processed foods, particularly processed carbohydrates. We're basically embalming ourselves with all the junk we're putting in ourselves. And according to experts, 88% of us have some form of, or we call insulin resistant. Insulin resistant. Literally, our body's not using that critical key hormone properly. We become resistant to its effects. We become sick because of it. And one of the things to do when you're insulin resistant is it affects lipids. Now, lipids are fats, cholesterol. You have LDL lipid. Then you have the particle size from the LDL, A and B. A is good, B is bad. We'll talk about that in a moment. Then you have triglycerides. You get those combinations, okay, and when you look at that in general, you say, well, how can I tell Dr. Fitness if I'm insulin resistant? A good way is to take a look at your triglycerides and look at your HDL. Then you can tell if more of those LDL particles are B and not A. A is the buoyant, soft, big old softball LDL particles that literally don't do any harm. B is the oxidized cholesterol that adheres to the artery walls and can cause damage. They'll adhere there. The immune system kicks in and sends these little critters out called macrophages, which gobble up the bad cholesterol and cause problems in that area. And according to the research, they're telling us that you can determine if you're insulin resistant or have more LDL B-sized particles by looking at the relationship or ratio between HDL cholesterol, that's the good stuff, and triglycerides. And if the triglycerides should never be more than twice the HDL. Because as that number goes up, so let's say your triglycerides are 100. and your HDLs are 50. You're right on the cutting edge. Let's say your HDLs are your triglycerides are 150, your HDL is 50. You're in trouble. That means you're insulin resistant. And we know that more of the LDL particles, the cholesterol, are oxidized. They're more tighter, hardball particles of cholesterol. Your doctor could test for this too, by the way. Often they don't, but if you ask them, they probably will. And it's the oxidized ones, again, that cause problems. And again, a good giveaway is the triglycerides. Triglycerides, again, should never be more than twice the HDL. In my case, my triglycerides run in the upper 30s, low 40s, and my HDL in the 70s. So my HDLs almost double my triglyceride, not the other way around, which is a good indication that my LDL particle size is the A form, not the B form. And this is all about diet. This is about the king of the kingdom. Because we know that triglycerides come from carbohydrates. And carbohydrates are pasta, rice, bread, corn products, sweets, fruit juice, fructose. It's when we eat these foods, when we develop all these different health issues. Because insulin resistance is tied into almost every disease, every chronic disease there is. Insulin resistance is tied to it some way, in some form, in most cases. We also know that Alzheimer's, dementia. Alzheimer's is referred to by many experts today as type 3 diabetes. Why is that? Insulin resistance of the brain. Again, the brain uses two sources of energy: glucose, that's carbohydrates, and fat, ketones, primarily BHB, beta-hydroxybutyrate. And that comes from low carbohydrate diet, or you can actually supplement the BHB orally. I do both. It's a miraculous product. But the dietary change, coupled with it, increases your well-being, makes aging more rewardable, more enjoyable. Age with grace. Enjoy life. And the only way you're going to get there is by movement and by diet. Just like when you look at nutrition in general, the king, and you look at high blood pressure, insulin resistance is directly tied to hypertension. We have over 100 million Americans with high blood pressure. Many of them are taking more than one medication, too, to keep it down. Sometimes too low. One of the most effective ways of keeping blood pressure normal is eating lower carbohydrates because of the effect it has on aldosterone. Aldosterone makes your kidneys retain what? Salt, which increases blood volume, which increases blood pressure. So when you cut your carbohydrates down, pasta, rice, bread, corn, sweets, fruit juice, aldosterone levels decrease and you release the extra sodium, subsequently bringing blood pressure down. But I'll bet you've never heard that from your doctor, have you? Unless you go to one that stays up on stuff. All it is give you another prescription for another medication for the sickness that you've created by lifestyle. Now, yeah, genetics have a role in this, but the genes are transcribed. They're turned on and off. And Dr. Cynthia Kenyon, in the early part of the 2000s, actually proved that in her laboratory and almost won a Nobel Prize in medicine when she was able to isolate the two genes that turn aging on and off. The one gene that turned aging on was called Grim Reaper. The one that turned aging off was Sweet 16. And she found that her research showed that she increased the longevity. Well, she was working with earthworms by keeping insulin levels low in the earthworms. And these worms lived, I believe, in many cases, 10 times as long. And that was so convincing to her, she almost won a Nobel Prize in medicine. But they can't give that away. That's nutrition. That she actually changed her diet. It's Dr. Cynthia Kenyon is her name. To look like mine. And I've been eating like this for a long time. Almost 40 years. Way before it became popular and everybody jumped on a bandwagon. The carbohydrates create the problem when it comes to your health in most cases. And the only one who benefits from being sick is Big Pharma, the drug companies who make drugs to treat you. That's why I bring up this Jardiance, the small pill with the big story. And Connor and I were sitting there laughing during the break. He was watching Ozempic on TV, and we're laughing like crazy. They got people dancing around looking like they're really happy, and they're overweight and stuff. They're not happy. You got to take a drug to treat a condition you created by your diet or lifestyle. That's not happy. Now, here's something else you can do for blood sugar. Improving your metabolic health. I mean, this is interesting stuff, how the body actually works. Imagine being able to lower your blood sugar spike you get from eating spaghetti dinner or ice cream cone by sitting on your butt. Scientists and doctors have long known that postprandial exercise, that is exercising about 30 minutes after meal, acutely moves blood sugar glucose in the muscle tissue where it's stored as glycogen. That takes the sugar from the blood you eat out of your bloodstream, where it can harm your cells and lead to type 2 diabetes over time. Even after dinner stroll is considered an exercise to lower blood sugar levels by shutting glucose into muscle. Now experiments by researchers at the Health and Human Performance Lab at the University of Houston suggest you don't have to huff and puff to get the benefits of better metabolic health. In fact, because exercise makes up just a fraction of our waking hours, if at all, his method is even more effective. Dr. Mark Hamilton, a University of Houston professor and an expert in muscle physiology and metabolism, has found that activating the soleus muscle in the calf using a certain technique results in elevated blood metabolism for hours. Details of the research appeared in September 2022, Journal Science. Hamilton calls the metabolism-boosting technique the soleus push-up, but it's not the kind of exercise you might expect to perform the push-up while sitting, and that's important because Americans spend an average of 10 hours sitting daily. So how you do this, you're sitting in a chair, and you're coming up on your toes, and you're going down. You're coming up on your toes, and you're going down. So a good technique would come up, hold for 4, go down slowly for 4, hold to bottom for 4, come back up for 4. You want to do about 10 of those. 1, 2, 3, 4, down, 1, 2, 3, 4, hold, 1, 2, 3, 4, up, 1, 2, 3, 4, hold, 1, 2, 3. You want to do about 10 of those. You do this for maybe a couple times a day, and it can boost your metabolism for hours. Amazing what the body does. So here, you're helping to make your aging more rewardable by doing a simple exercise sitting in your chair at home watching television to boost metabolism. You don't have to get out and run a mile or get on an elliptical or treadmill or do something crazy. Just up and down on your toes, up and down, seated with the knees bent, because that's when the soleus is most active. It's most active when your knees are bent. Up and down, up and down, up and down.